Have the Pelicans peaked? Have the Pelicans or would the Pelicans have to make a decision? And is it too early to be talking about the future decisions when it comes to Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson? I got my dog here. I'm sure y'all watched the show already. We're gonna talk about it. Y'all gonna argue about it. We're gonna get in the comments, but let's get it.
You must know that first. Can't nothing and nobody fade what we trying to do and what we about to do. Second thing is, we got this game on our level. You understand what I'm saying?
Welcome to another episode of In Space. I'm your host, Chris Connor. Shout out to the good people that support us at Birdsall Law Firm, Jägermeister, as well as DraftKings Sportsbook. You typically will get a read from them. I don't think it's updated yet, so we will play that by ear, but I doubt we'll get one here today. Hopefully that's cool. Got my dog Chaz with me here. Chaz, what up, bro?
I'm doing good, brother. How you, man?
I'm good, bro. You know what I mean? I'm good. Not too high, not too low.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? You know,
just on the level, just right on the level.
Maintaining, dog. Speaking of, look, man, I guarantee y'all, if y'all see a random, like maybe like a 50-year-old black man, and you walk up to him and you ask him how he doing, like just ask about 5 of them. One of them gonna say putting one foot in front of the other. It's gonna happen. You know what I'm saying?
Trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
Take it. Can't call it. Just might spoil it.
Right.
Let's feel like that.
So the Pelicans are now officially in the All-Star break, or they look like they needed it in the past few games. But by the time this has come out, I'm sure you guys will have already watched Chaz's show. If you haven't already, though, the day I'm recording this is Thursday the 15th. I'm not sure when this show is dropping, but I think like Monday or Tuesday. But if you haven't already by then/now, have Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram, Pelicans, already peaked. And I think it's a good topic. It's kind of ironic because I think when Chaz recorded this was before, or maybe it was afterwards, but it was right around the time that the Ringer had put out some stuff in the tweet show from in the Eastern Conference executive. A lot of things that we have been talking about, the topic we've been running into the mud pretty much, all season so far, dated back to, the off season and maybe even beyond that, about the Pelicans eventually needing to make a decision between Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. And I thought it was a good time with Chad dropping that show to kind of, maybe talk about that topic in a different way. Because a lot of this stuff, has been regurgitated, over and over again. But it's interesting to me because I was telling Chaz before we, recorded, it's like, yo, man, I've been watching this team since 02 or 03. And before then, I was still a fan of, of basketball. I was a Lakers fan, I was a Bulls fan, a little bit younger, but I watched as many games as I could of those teams. And it's only one season I could think of in Pelicans history where I was just waiting for the year to end. And it's weird. It's like I'm not hoping that they lose these games. And there are games against, superior competition. Some that they had lost that I was really into, and others in which they won, where I was, happy that they won. But I still feel like there's something missing. Like, it's weird. And it's only one season I can think of where it felt like I just knew how it was going to end. So my excitement or my my positivity levels were kind of kept. And the only year I can think of, Chaz, is the year after the Hornets at the time were a game away from the Western Conference Finals. That the first year of the pinstripe jerseys, where they signed James Posey, and it got to a point to where it was like you kind of saw early how it was going to end. I didn't think they were going to get embarrassed in the way that they did in certain parts against the Nuggets in the first round that year. But that's how this season is. What's for you watching this team, being from the city, not necessarily, not hoping on losses, but kind of just being objective and being consistent with how you've been viewing where this should go from a business side, personnel side. How are you viewing where the team is at, where the record tells you that they're not just good, they're a little bit better than good. I think now with 11 games over 500 as we go into the All-Star break.
I just think taking everything in context, like you say, when you for me, I just like to zoom out a bit. You look at last season, keep in mind it was December, but you're 10 games over 500 and you're the number 1 seed. Whereas now you're 11 games over 500 and you're fighting to stay out of the play-in. So, and this is while healthy. So it kind of just, I think one of the reasons it's hard to put rose-colored glasses on this season in particular is because there's nothing really to hope for. Like on the show today, I mentioned, what could a person realistically anticipate getting better? You could say Trey's production because he's coming off an injury. You can say, I guess Zion's going to keep getting into better shape. And you can, I guess, say Brandon's going to shoot more threes. Like you're counting on a bunch of internal growth. And 2 of those things you shouldn't even have to count on. You know what I'm saying? Zion's been healthy. Brandon's been healthy. There's no reason for Zion to still be in questionable shape. There's no reason for Brandon not to be shooting threes consistently. And in knowing some of the things we know with Willie Green, it's no reason to think he's going to change much. So there's really no hope injected into this team or to the season. You had a young rookie prospect like a Jordan Hawkins. You can say, okay, I'm watching this guy closely, seeing where he'll go, and maybe he could take another step for the future of the team. They pretty much cut the legs from under him, so to speak. So now you just you're watching a rerun of last year and just hoping that you can continue to stay healthy this time around and possibly be competitive in the first round.
So the season that I was talking about was 08-09.
That's the Antonio Daniels season.
I think so. The Pelicans ironically finished 49-33. Which I think is what this Pelicans team is kind of on pace for in that range. And like, man, it's just it's odd watching like certain conversations. It's like I hear people say, like, man, this would be, they on pace to have the second best record in franchise history. But it's like, we're not talking about a glorious. Am I supposed to be happy? It's like when you black and you got to a point, where you upset about whatever it is. Like, it could be economical, it could be housing discrimination, it could be it could be whatever the topic is, and somebody say, well, we've you can vote, you can go where you want, you
come so far.
Right. You come so far. I remember when you didn't have any of these rights. Now they're passing civil bills every day.
You guys got LeBron James,
right? You got the best athletes in the world. Like that's how to kind of take a comparison. Not to that extreme, but sometimes that's how I view it. It's like, yeah, man, like it's cool that the team may be en route to having their like. It's not saying that there's not any type of progression. Like this could be the 3rd year in a row where the team is in playoff contention, which I don't believe has ever happened. The third season in a row, and this will be 2 out of 3 years in which they make the playoffs if they end up, doing so, which is cool. But typically, and I look around the league, they got people around the league. When you listen to them talk about the Pelicans, have as many questions as we have going forward to where something doesn't look right. One of the things you dropped during your show is you talked about 4-man lineups. And you talk about, and not even a 4-man, you look at the 5-man lineup. It's one of, like, the Pelicans star lineup is one statistically and by net rating, I believe it's one of the more poor lineup in basketball, but not even just that. The people, like the teams that surround, I think the 4-man group, what you talked about, it's like the Wizards, the Hawks, it's the mediocre teams.
All below 500, Toronto.
Yeah, so I mean, you talk, and at the end of the day, man, this is the NBA, bro. Your 1 and your 2, your best 2 players, they got to be incredible, or you got to have a top 5, a top 10 overall NBA talent to make some real noise, or you got to have the foresight to say, I don't have those things. And maybe, you could take a Miami Heat type of magical run and build around it with a bunch of solid talent. But even still, you gotta have somebody who's a little bit crazy like Jimmy Butler. I don't think the Pelicans have that either. Or an incredible coach.
Yeah.
In Spoelstra. I mean, it's just so, the data says, even though you could say that this team is good, you could find some other analytical things that support this team being good. But the overwhelming data in regards to the most important lineups that are going to be playing night in and night out against the best team tells you that this team, they're not going anywhere. And I think it's hard to ignore that while looking to April, and possible May playoff matchups and thinking about what this team does well and what they don't do well down the line.
I think, man, I always go back to media day. This team, some of your better players, Zion didn't really say much. He was pretty stoic. What Brandon told you he wanted his money, and only real goal Griff mentioned was winning the in-season tournament. So, like, from the beginning of the season, my question always been like, what's the goal for this team? Are you comfortable just making the playoffs? Or are you comfortable just saying we had a competitive series? Because truthfully, I don't know how much data they realistically need at this point. Brandon and Zion have played, but they played about roughly 50 games that first season under Stan Van Gundy, a few 10 games, because I don't really count CJ in this equation, because ultimately CJ is the guy who's always was going to get replaced in that trio. He was always the person who's going to get upgraded. So it's really about that duo. So at this point, 50 games into this season, they've played a little over a season together, and they don't seem to complement one another. And when you talk about, having top 10 players, top 50, even let's say, I would argue top 30 players at this currently, you have to really ask yourself, like, how much better do you anticipate this player getting? And not even far off into the future. How much better can a person realistically get this season? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, immediately. Then you go into the playoffs where schematically everything's different. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to have a coaching advantage whatsoever. And teams who have high-end role players, high-end starting units, they're going to be able to, just go ahead and show you that there's levels to this. And we've seen that time and time again this season, and I that's why context is so important. Like, you play the Cleveland Cavaliers, now that's going to show up as the victory on the schedule, but it's no Donovan Mitchell, no Garland, no Mobley. Yeah, you could say you didn't have Zion, but they were missing 3 of their starting players. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you had an incredible effort from Trey Murphy. You have to ask how realistic is something like that in a playoffs, series consistently. And you're 5 years in, man. You 5 years in at this point. Math is math. Like, you 5 years in. Injuries be damn. Look, time and money is real. You got decisions to make, and some of them decisions can cripple you for years to come.
I think a lot of people, which I don't really, I don't knock. I'm a believer of, like, however you run your household is how you run your household. Just don't walk over to mine and tell me how to run mine. Right. You know what I'm saying? I the days of me jumping into somebody's comment or, quote tweeting someone, tell them that they wrong, pretty much dead. Because, I don't care.
Yeah,
like, you know what I'm saying? Unless we homies or, I'm joking around or something like that. Mm-hmm. Nine times out of 10, that ain't really, that's pointless to me. Yeah. However, there are folks that I think just want to be happy about what is. They want to, and I think the tough thing about that, you mentioned that it is year 5. I think if this was like year 2 or year 3, for example, maybe it'll be different, because you could say then the Pelicans are a team on the rise.
Right.
But it doesn't feel that way, right? Even when you look at the age, right? BI's 26, but He's in what you talking year 8, year 9? You
Year 8,
know,
I believe.
yeah. I mean, Zion's 20. You know, you still have a relatively young roster, but they don't feel like a team that's necessarily on the rise. Even when
Right.
folks would try to compare them to unhealthier teams that have had some success, like Denver, for example, who ended up winning the championship. Jokic was incredible, and they were healthy for the most part, made some changes around the edges, but they were still making the playoffs even in years that they weren't healthy.
Right. They were
So
failing
those,
in the playoffs.
yeah.
Right.
And their most talented / best player was in the front of that.
Yeah.
You know, like no matter how good anyone thinks that Brandon Ingram is, even if you think Brandon Ingram's the best player on the team, it damn sure wasn't set up to be that way. You know,
Right.
this would almost be like Jokic being hurt and Jamal Murray being in the play-in one year, being in the playoffs another, and then you trying to figure out how it looks with Jokic. It would look different. You know what I'm saying? It would look completely different.
Right. Right.
You know, so I don't I think it's just tough, man, with all of the financial decisions. And I know people want to say, well, you know, I worry about it when it comes here.
Mhm.
You know, that's not always the smart move to make, man. You gotta think ahead. You gotta plan ahead, or you end up making. Atlanta said the same thing with John Collins. I worry about it later on. I worry about it.
Yep.
Then you end up making a decision that you hate and someone that you can't get rid of.
Yeah.
You know, you end up bringing back Bogdanovich. You end up bringing back all of these different guys that want minutes and Hunter and so on and so forth. And it just Capella blocking, you know, minutes for your backup center, and it's just a log jam, and it don't work, and it also ends up getting a coach fired
Right.
mid-season. Like it's just and cool. They got Eastern Conference berth out of it, but ain't nobody gonna be. You think Atlanta fans still thinking about that when they think about Trae Young right now? No,
Nope.
Trae Young in trade conversations already.
Right.
The Eastern Conference berth don't matter no more. So I just I don't want to rain on people's parades that say or that think like let's enjoy what's happening. Let's enjoy what's happening right now. When I'm here to tell you, like, all right, like the signs are here that this team is going to face a brick wall. And whether you wanna defer the payment all the way to the end, or you want to take, you know, or you want to act like it's not there, it's going to happen. And the only way that I think you could really suspend belief, Chaz, is if you really felt like this team, maybe not even a championship team, could make it to a Western Conference Finals. And then maybe from there, you could say in the offseason, you know, they'll make a decision on the center position and so on and so forth versus running it back. But I'm not even sure if you can feel confident in them being a Western Conference Finals team. The question mark is they can win a series. And I think that's what has me lost in it, because this isn't just a random team to where you're like, all right, just let them grow. Nah,
Yeah.
man, like I don't know if it's that kind of situation.
You know what's crazy? Like, could you reference the parade thing? And it's like we not even at y'all parade. I'm under the bridge. You on Bourbon? Do you?
Yeah.
I'm not thinking. You know, I'm not thinking about you. You thinking about me? Like you worried about my parade? What we got going on? Chilling
Yeah.
under the bridge. So that's the crazy part about it, right? It's like, you know, if you want to think that, hey, look, a sucker's born every minute. You know what I'm saying? You can think, you can feel however you want to feel about this team, and you know that's your prerogative. I think even like for me, I feel like they've positioned themselves by betting on this roster to have to reach that pinnacle of the Western Conference Finals, because you couldn't really justify going into the tax improving this team if you don't win multiple series at this point. Because, and even if you do, you're talking about an ownership that very well could say, well, we wasn't in the tax when you made it. Why we got to go in the tax now? Like, you know, you haven't really proven enough to really, you know, go and then you don't have many avenues to improve in the event that you were even mildly successful this year. Like for me, and I personally think the window is already closed on this team for us, like the quote unquote championship window. Just because of there's a really significant lack of buy-in. They didn't really round the edges. You got certain guys on this team who are getting significant minutes who aren't like playoff players. Like you can't play these guys in the playoffs. And this team is very reliant upon having, significant rotation. Like, you know what I'm saying? This Pelicans play 9-10 guys sometimes. So in the playoffs, you're talking about maybe 8-man rotation, 7-man rotation. If your starting unit is bad, okay, JV's not necessarily playable in most matchups in the playoffs, or at least not for a series once they kind of scout that out. And all this is while healthy. So remove JV from the equation, right? Now you're down to maybe 6 playable players. Remove Larry. Larry may or may not be healthy. Larry got his stuff, going on. Now you're down to 5 people. You're down to a starting unit that isn't even that good. Like that's one of the worst starting units in the league right now. So it's just, and you're going into this off season with little to no avenues to improve. Even if you wanted to go into the tax, you would have to acquire these people via trade. The only problem is you don't have any tradable assets. So now you've lost JV, you got Larry, and you still got Herb's contract, you got Trey Murphy. Now you're losing the depth of your roster to go out and land some big fish. And then you got to incorporate him into the roster. You got to round out the back of the roster. It's just so many things that you have to do that to even like to put duct tape on the situation when everyone kind of sees like, yo, like every like analytical person, everyone who's watching the team from afar, national people, like you kind of got to break this up. You probably should have broken it up already, to be honest. But if you wanted to just, if it's fair, it's only fair, it's healthy. Let's see it play out. But now you're under the gun in the offseason. You have no leverage. So
yeah, and I mean, it's funny because I think if you'd have asked everybody, let's say after the team acquired CJ, and at that time, I think folks believed that both Brandon and Zion would be a part of the future. But if you ask most people, they looked at acquiring CJ as like a somewhat of a stopgap, just to buy time for CJ. I mean, I'm sorry, for Zion and Brandon as a duel. Like that's really what it felt like. And I think if you ask most people, even before the CBA, the latest CBA, you would have thought go this upcoming offseason, you would say, oh, what that's that's 2 seasons. Most people, I think, would have predicted if a big trade was going to be made a couple seasons afterwards, it would point at CJ McCollum. Mm-hmm. Now the conversation is different. The conversation shifted. Yeah. People aren't talking about CJ. You got tweets, you got reports coming out that they're gonna have to make a decision between Zion and Brandon. Let me ask you this: with everything that's going on, how we get here?
that's the $1 million question, man, or the $50 million question, right? Because I think Griff said this on media day. He said one of the mistakes he thinks he made was not making this Zion's team or putting the pressure on him of being the guy immediately. When with the whole this is Drew Holiday's team, we'll go as far as Drew Holiday takes us.
I didn't know he said that.
Yeah, he said on media day, right? And I'm like, well, Griff, I understand, about the health things and all that and the immaturity, because those are real things. Those are real reasons not to buy into the Zion stock or what have you, right? But at the same time, it's like, bro, you're just repeating the same thing you've done before. At this point, Drew Holiday is a multiple-time All-Star, but he had to go to another team and be a third option to achieve that. I would say him and Brandon are probably equally tiered players, with Drew Holiday being the multiple-time All-Star. You're kind of repeating the same mistake as far as you've held on to certain assets too long in the Lonzo Balls, in the JJ Redicks, and even Drew Holiday to a lesser extent. You kind of went with bad fits as far as the center position. I don't feel like this team was ever built to accommodate Zion necessarily. I don't feel like it's ever happened. And even when you say we got shooters now, they don't play the shooters. So it's still not built to accommodate this dude. I just think it's a lot of mismanaging of assets, Zion's immaturity, Brandon's refusal to kind of buy in. Then you have, I think this front office totally underestimated people's desire to come to New Orleans. Well, desire not to come to New Orleans. Like when you're wasting time chasing Kyle Lowry, you're wasting time chasing Chris Paul, Tim Hardaway, Malik Monk. You had Harrison Barnes who was kind of open to it, but these are just the names we know about. Like imagine how many other people said no. You have to overpay for JJ Redick. You let what's my dog name? You let Gary Temple's trade salary go to waste. You let Jackson Hayes' salary go to waste. You just, your coach isn't playing Trey Murphy or isn't playing the young guys. You're not developing any of your young guys. And the thing I think people really just don't get, bro, they just don't seem to get it. Herb Jones has been great, right? Herb Jones has been great. Jose has been cool. It's been a cool story, serviceable player, right? And situational. But that doesn't atone for all the sins of missed lottery picks. You pretty much gave Kyra Lewis away for nothing. Like you had to pay to get him out the door. You had to pay to get in. You didn't draft Devontae, but it cost you a first and 4 seconds. You had to pay to get him out the building. Jackson walks for nothing. You kind of give away Dyson has kind of been at this point. Hawkins is on the bench. What people don't seem to like gather is that those lottery picks are players that's supposed to be the crown jewel in significant trades for you to acquire more talent. So every opportunity you had to go get a Tyrese Halliburton type or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander type, Tyrese Maxey type, there's a player that could be the significant player in a trade for you to acquire high-end talent. You failed. And now you're rounding out your roster with people who are probably going to be journeymen or fringe NBA players. And that's really just how we've arrived here,
Yeah, man. I mean, and it's funny. I mean, because that's another reason why I find myself, looking back, comparing this team in some ways to that 08-09 Hornets team. Because, they were, I remember I was talking to my cousin, and at that time, the year that they won 56 games, Julian Wright was getting minutes, right?
Yeah.
And he was a rookie. He was a lottery pick. And the hope was, like, you knew Mopi was older. You knew Page at some point was going to hit a wall because he was older. He had back problems. He wasn't even the same. While he was still really good, he was breaking down.
Yeah, he wasn't even the same guy from the first year.
Yeah. So, as great as Chris Paul was, like, you rounded out that team with Gennaro Pargos, Jose Alvarado. Not even yet.
He came in with Monty, right?
Yeah, I mean, but Chris Anderson, who didn't end up even playing for that team because he was hurt. He was going through some. I don't remember what it was, but like, we talking Mike James. We're talking, the end of Bonzi Wells' career, bro. Like you're fishing to make up for a Chris Paul, David West, Tyson Chandler trio, which is good, but you eventually learn talent-wise is different levels. So I bring up Julian Wright. Rest in peace, Rasul Butler, another guy. Like, fun stories, dudes that's playing, that's playing meaningful minutes, that's having good runs, but it's not enough in comparison to others. And I think Julian Wright thing is funny because I remember I talked to my cousin that particular year. He was like, Byron Scott hates young players. Like, they're not, like, the Hornets are not going to develop him in the way that they probably should or trade him. They probably should look at this loss and say, we need an impactful wing. We need this. We may need to take a leap that no one's expecting. But instead, they run it back, hoping on internal growth, They go out and they sign they use their mid level to sign James Posey, and they regress and get worse. And the year afterwards, they pretty much have to blow it up. That's where the Tyson Chandler situation happens. David West gets hurt. Chris Paul it falls, it falters. So I think what's missed is that you are a small market. You know what I'm saying? So you either got to be incredible in the front office, you got to be incredible when it comes to developing, not just developing young talent, young talent, not just nice stories, not guys that go from average to good. You got to be able to turn one of these good guys to somebody great. You got to be OKC, for example.
Right.
Jalen Williams is probably like he's playing great basketball right now, bro.
Right.
You
Right.
know
He
what I'm
might be
saying?
all NBA this year, bro. He might be third team. Like
At
he's
least
nice.
he's playing like it. You end
Right.
up drafting Chet Holmgren, but even if there's nothing else, no matter how they got it, Chet Holmgren was one of the best talents, if not the best talent that came out of that draft.
Right.
And Jalen Williams, no matter what you think, where he was drafted, developmental or just getting lucky with the right guy in the right situation, he's looking like someone who's going to be great. The Pelicans, I feel like, need something like that, specifically looking at the fact that 1 and 2 don't seem to mesh well, and that was the hope about Trey Murphy. But your conversation about, or the things we always talk about him and Willie's, progressing going forward, how he's being used, how he's getting the basketball, and then the injury kind of blocks that. So now who's next? If you point at Herb Jones, Herb 26.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. How old
He's
is
20.
Herb Jones?
He's 25. Might
Might
as well be 26.
My bad. I don't want to. He's 25. He's 25.
Yeah, he's the lowest ceiling player, right? That's like even with OKC, and that's respect to Herb Jones. Herb Jones still all defense, hell of a player, but he doesn't have. There isn't some extreme next step a Herb Jones is going to take, and that's the frustrating thing. Even when you say with OKC, right? OKC is doing all of this same rebuild schedule as the Pelicans. You could even say they purposely tanked for years to be strategic, took on bad salaries to get additional first round picks. And if it goes to hell this year for OKC, they still got another bullet in the chamber. They still got Lou Dort's contract. They still got all this tradable salary. Like, they still got moves they can make. They still got all of their picks. And they're a winning organization, so people wouldn't mind playing for them despite them being, a small market. We know with the Pelicans, people, on top of being a small market, you're like a questionable team. On top of being a questionable team, you got an infamous infamous front office. I'll say that. So if someone goes to talk to Elvin Gentry, Elvin, what you think about this? Luke Walton, what you think about this? Team
JJ
people. JJ Redick, what you think about this? People know, like, you know what I'm saying? People know, like, I don't know, this might not be, that might want to do that. So, news travels, and if we know stuff, imagine what everybody else, imagine stuff we don't know that everybody else knows. So it's just like, it's crazy, man. And I don't even think it's as simple as just a duo. I would say, I think you need a clean break from David Griffin and everything David Griffin loves. I think you need a clean break, bro, because he's never done anything really. Like, so how can we realistically expect him to fix his mess that he's made here? Does he even recognize it is a mess? And that's the thing.
And that's the thing. I don't think that a lot of the observers, I don't think that they see it that way. They see Herb Jones, for example. They say great story, great find in the second round, he'll be an all NBA defensive player this year. Just on the Pelicans winning enough games alone, he's going to make an all NBA. He's been incredible, improved as a shooter, and probably has enough in his bag offensively if you use him enough to maybe be a guy that one year averages 15 points a game. That's amazing. The Trey Murphy hype has fallen a little bit since the offseason, but eventually that's gonna find its way back. I think, and then I think people people say they look at they don't look at Brandon and Zion as much having down years or years of struggling because they're seeing they see wins or they see games where no one scores 20 points and low key maybe one of the two of the guys really struggle bad in that performance and they see other guys picking up the slack and it's good. But we don't talk about the fact that Antonio Daniels will say on a broadcast, yo, Pelicans are down, or they blow a lead or whatever, and the bitch comes in, and next thing you know, it's just the second unit. The second unit when Zion starts in the second quarter, and the game changes. And you get Antonio Daniels on the broadcast saying you can't continue to expect the bench to be the reason that you're back in games. A bench that are bringing in two undrafted guys. The two guys that you're thinking about right now when you talk, he didn't even mention Trey Murphy. He's talking about Najee Marshall and Jose Alvarado. There's no other teams. There's no other teams that are built like that. Their starters are there. Their group is there to make you pay early.
Right.
And so that's something that's concerning. Now they've had games where they got off to fast starts. But you have to wonder if it's consistent and if it's consistent at the best of the best. And if people are cool with winning 50 games, winning 49 games, okay, that's fine. But this whole thing is about building forward, about do you have a bright future or not? And even if you think they have a bright future, you have no idea what that looks like. Right. Anybody else that I can say in this league that has a bright future, I can tell you what it looks like. I don't think Sacramento has a bright future. And that's because I don't know what it looks like. You know what I'm saying? Like, Malik Monk's gonna
get out of here.
Like he did them a service coming back. You know what I'm saying? It's time for him to go and get paid and maybe saying, yo, I should be a second guard on a team somewhere, somebody's starting lineup. I earned that.
Right.
The list goes on and on in regards to teams that I could look at and say, yo, like I like this story. I like what they're doing right now, but I don't know what the future looks like. And the Pelicans, as good of a record as they have right now, fun stories and all, they fit in that group.
Yeah. Then, I mean, man, listen to the Hoops Hype podcast prior to the trade deadline. They were saying teams this offseason are kind of, they excited to see which one of those guys the Pelicans are going to trade. And as you mentioned, it doesn't make, in my personal opinion, two of those players have to go. Two of those three players. And one of them has to go immediately. And I think Brandon has to go immediately, and you have time with CJ due to CJ's contract to where you need to fill out the rest of the roster. And you're talking about, if the front office recognizes that you're not selling Brandon or one of these players for pennies on the dollar, like, yo, this may be what he's worth considering the amount of talent. Like, to me, Sabonis is having one of the greatest seasons historically ever, right? Dude getting like 16 assists, triple doubles is phenomenal. You wouldn't even think to say Sabonis is like a super duper elite player. And he's arguably having a better individual season than either of those players. You know what I'm saying? So it comes to a point in time when you have to stop thinking about potential and all that. Like, it's like, look, bro, this is the situation. Like, these are the contracts. This is what's happening. This is where the league is trending. And, bro, I mean, even you look at a team like Dallas still got Tim Hardaway to trade. Like, they still got avenues to where they could get better. And both of those individual players are better than both of your top individual players.
Exactly.
So in the playoffs, or just even in like the regular season, man, with the Pelicans, it ain't even necessarily about a Zion versus Tatum. It's going to be about, can Brandon consistently outplay Jaylen Brown? Can CJ consistently outplay Porzingis or Drew Holiday? Or like, when you start having those conversations, like, is Zion going to consistently play Jokic in a series? Most likely no. Right? Is Brandon going to take enough threes to consistently outplay Murray? It's possible. Is CJ gonna, be like the CJ of old or the CJ of recently in the play-in playoffs?
Yeah.
Is a lot of things to consider, man. And like even with Herb, as incredible as Herb's been, it's still like you're talking about a Brent Brown, Alex Caruso level tier player. Like, you know what I'm saying? You're not talking about, I'm trying to think, like, you're not talking about like Manu. Nobody or Geno, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we not talking about like the best case scenario for for Herb would be to turn into Mikal Bridges, and I'm not saying
Man,
it's
that was super ideal. Yeah.
yeah. I'm not saying he go. I'm speaking of Mikal Bridges in Phoenix. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, or someone who has the ability to turn into what we've seen in Brooklyn. I don't like that would be best case for
Right.
for Herb, but I mean, here's another example. Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland is Cleveland. Nobody wants to go there.
Right.
Donovan Mitchell may be probably on his way out. But let's say for this season, they would be my pick to win the East or win a championship. But if you made me just talk about rosters,
Mm-hmm.
and you made me just talk about talent and what they're doing right now, how could I tell you another team outside of Boston really could beat them? Bro, they
Right.
got Karis LeVert, they got Karis LeVert coming off their bench, a talent.
Mm-hmm.
Like a supreme talent. They got
Right.
George Niang, a really good shooter.
Very
Oro
good.
was a former first rounder of them who was used to be in their starting lineup coming off the bench. Those are two talented for sure guys coming off your bench. Your starting lineup, Jared Allen, like really good center, having another amazing year. We know what Mitchell is. Mobley, top what was he, number 2 a few years
Yeah,
ago.
something like that. Yeah.
Draft pick, talent. Darius Garland, talent.
All-star. There is
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Somebody who led you to the play-in a couple years ago. So
Right.
Cleveland and New Orleans, like it's different even in rosters, and it shouldn't be because they're
Right.
both small markets. And even if
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland knows it's gonna fail, I could at least think about something in my head. I could paint something saying, I can see how they make the finals.
Yeah.
I don't think they will, but I can see it. So even if
Right.
it falls apart completely, this is what they have, and it's solid.
Right. And like success breeds like a bit of loyalty. Like if you're a Donovan Mitchell, yeah, I mean, it's an open secret that we think Donovan Mitchell want to join the Knicks. The Knicks, who've been incredible this season, they're going through some injury stuff right now, but they still have plenty of avenues to improve. Yet and still, if you look at that, like Mobley, he's on his rookie contract still. Like he's due for an extension. Jared Allen wasn't even supposed to be this good again. Like, they were supposed to be looking for a reason to get rid of Jared Allen. Spider was supposed to be out. Like, I ain't, though Garland and Mobley going down at the same time for that significant amount of time was supposed to ruin this team. It's supposed to be it for them. They're supposed to be a lottery team. Them dudes won like 16 of their last like 17 games. Like they've been incredible. And if you're the Pelicans, you've been healthy. You haven't had those problems. You have the same staff essentially, because we know Borrego ain't really he's an addition in name, but not necessarily an addition in voice. So you don't necessarily have those issues. Like, it takes about 20 games for two players to learn how to like integrate and play with one another. CJ is a catch and shoot guy, so he doesn't really have a super,
Look
significant.
how fast the Clippers did it.
Right. You see what I'm saying? There was 10 games.
Yeah.
And these are old men, quote unquote.
Yeah.
These are dudes with playoff legs. Like, what I'm saying, coming off of significant injuries. And y'all ain't really, the thing that's most troubling to me, bro, is that I don't see the mental toughness. And I still just don't see the buy-in. And I know when things get real for this team, they go back to what they know. And Zion, I saw Zion this year in that Utah game. He looked like Duke Zion. He looked about 5 to 10 pounds from being Duke Zion, right? And I'm like, oh, this dude's serious. They put the 86 at that point Zion shit. It looked like he stopped at Wendy's again on his way home. He put on a few pounds, and you see him last night. Now he looked like he kind of a little bit, in the middle. He not all the way Utah, but he not in season tournament neither. So it's like, what's gonna happen with him once you say no? Your ass has been in the back seat. You're gonna stay in the back seat. This is, I know you ain't want to take no back seat. You stand in the back seat. You can't ride up front with the adults, right? Oh, what happens to Brandon when you say, look, dog, it is what it is. You 4-17 from beyond the arc, and since Toronto, just stay in the corner over there and be ready to shoot the ball when we pass it to you. Like, what happens to his morale? Do you see another game where he takes 9 shot attempts? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what happens to these guys when they're really held accountable, put in a situation that's adverse? And I think we've kind of seen that with all of these these crunch time losses, these losses against some more like superior teams and teams that are a bit more well-rounded, because Pelicans still got a map problem, still got free throw shooting problems. They still like the and we talked about the offensive net rating pretty much with that starting unit. They pretty bad defensively too. So it's like you've got so many problems that you have no way of correcting aside from internal growth.
And I guess every time you thought about the team addressing it, they kind of kicked the can down the road. And look, man, for all we know, Zion can turn into a different individual. Brandon could come back all-star, could come back post all-star break and be something, that would not that he wasn't in the first half of the season.
Right.
Trey could take that break and slowly start. The list could go on and on of scenarios that could happen. But the thing is that, like, we're built as humans, we're built as analysts to project, and that's going forward. You out your mind if you think that when the playoffs start, I'm not going to be locked in hoping that they win every fucking game. If there was an opportunity for this team to win a championship, bro, like, I don't want these motherfuckers to lose. But if I think that they are going to lose, then yeah, I mean, what, I'm supposed to just sit here and be like, no.
Yeah.
If I think that they are going to lose at the end of the day, and you, even the most optimistic person, is going to be asking questions then at that point that we're asking now, like, I don't want to be waiting until the day before my damn rent is due to figure out how I'm gonna pay it.
Right.
I don't want to do that. I want to do it now, bro.
The crazy thing is, basketball, sports in general, it's the thought that counts type thing. Like, that's not sports. Like, you know what I'm saying? You either win. Yeah, you either won or you didn't. No one give a fuck. Look, the 49ers defensive coordinator, he held Patrick Mahomes to 19 points most of the game. They said, hey, what the fuck, and got him out of here. He said, oh, we didn't expect that draw play. Something y'all studied and filmed probably the last 4 years, right? And y'all didn't expect it. He got fired, right? It ain't about the thought that counts. You either won or you didn't win. And the thing with the Pelicans is they don't have the grace of a team that's still growing, still quote unquote gelling. Because it's like, again, how much more chemistry do you expect this team to? What more continuity could they potentially have? I think at this point, everyone knows what the other person's spot on the floor is. Everyone knows what the other person's habits or tendencies are, offensively and defensively. What more could they possibly like? How much more friendly or like what more could they fucking do before talent becomes the issue? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and just fit between one another and figuring out how to be dynamic. The Pelicans don't have enough dynamic factors night in and night out. They just don't, right? They don't have it's tough, bro, because, like, you would think, because and we're gonna wrap up here shortly, but I was trying to think of outside the box things when they didn't make move at the trade deadline. After Dyson got hurt, I said, all right, well, this is the perfect opportunity for you to say, like, playing Jordan Hawkins at this point and having him play minutes at the end of it's not going to be the reason you win or lose more games at the end of the year dramatically. It's not. But using that weapon for a team that does lack of just a certain level of explosion matters, right? There's a ceiling to what Jose and what Najee Marshall can do, even if they're playing well. There's simply a ceiling. Trey Murphy, ceiling's higher. Even with Jordan Hawkins, the ceiling is higher. And eventually, you are going to be running. I remember Pelicans teams, even afterwards, bringing Norris Cole off the bench, Chaz. And
That's cool.
everybody in that building knew there's levels, bro. You
Right.
can't be depending on Norris Cole and Quincy Pondexter as
Ian
the
Clark.
reasons you can't, bro. Ian Clark ain't been back in the league since he left New Orleans, dog.
Right.
Nice story. Nice story, but at the end of the day, it is about talent and it is about who you have invested in. If you are bringing in really solid dudes, the only reason Norris Cole got championship because it's a big difference coming off the bench with the Heatles
Right.
or playing spot minutes with them than it is being one of the Pelicans' best bench scorers for a period of time. You depending on the Darius Millers of the world and so on. Second round draft picks, undrafted guys. Oh, Nicola Melli. This team finally has the draft resources and they've had the resources to trade for better talent. So it ain't just making a trade to make a trade. You have to notice. You got to look at this roster and say, it's not enough. Nice stories, energy, all that shit does not win you series and not win you big games consistently, bro. It don't.
And look, the crazy part is, and to me, they know it's not enough. They know that because on a real, you're not even really entertaining no trades for no starting caliber DeJounte Murray types, Jared Allen. You're not entertaining those type of trades. It's not even a discussion if you feel like you have enough. You don't want my Cal if you feel like you have enough. You know what I'm saying? You're not even thinking about it. And the fact that they didn't pull the trigger, it had to tell you that, well, shit, either we don't got nothing nobody else want, or we'd have to give up so many fives. We had to give up so many nickels because we don't have a dime that by the time we get a damn quarterback, we'll still be short. Because think about what they said, bro. Oh, we expect to have some luck in the buyout market. All the best buyout market guys are gone. Like, so you're gonna go get Robin Lopez. You're gonna go that Gallinari. He was like one of them people. Like, if you got a little bit left in the tank, he just went to the Bucks. So who you gonna get? Like, you know what I'm saying? Realistically, and it's just it ain't like your around the edge guys are playing phenomenally. You know, in some of the games they've bailed you out, it's been against kind of shitty teams. Like, you know, it's cool if Jose can come and give you some energy against the Memphis Grizzlies, who don't have anyone on the court. But your three max guys shouldn't be having 16 points, 14 points, 12 points. If that's something that's going to consistently happen like it's happened this season, then you got way bigger problems. And you might not have enough bullets in your gun to address them all, bro. Like, you might not have them.
And I mean, look, man, I think this team, I think they're probably a 7 seed, but I see a path for them finishing 6th. I do. And honestly, I see a path of them finishing 5th just because Phoenix's health is just all over the place, man. I mean, they didn't, you know, KD been the one that really ain't been out of action. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we don't know how long, you know, you playing with fire, having to log him for large minutes because Bill's been out and Book missed some time earlier in the year. Like, you know, those two dudes are supposed to be keeping him fresh for the playoff time. So I see a way that this team is 6th or 5th. And to me, that's great. They get the right matchup. You know what I mean? There's a couple teams I think that they could beat. I think that they could take the Thunder seven games. Yeah, I think they could, matchup wise, right? I think they can beat the Timberwolves. I think the Clippers. I don't think they can beat the Clippers, but in a 7-game series, and that's just respect to Ty Lue, but that's another situation I think they could go 7. You know, if they face the Kings, they can beat the Kings just based off matchups. But there are certain teams in this Western Conference that the way that they're built, their talent, bro, they don't give a fuck about matchups. They like, yo, I am like we are who we are. The Nuggets don't care that they just lost to the Kings because they know when they get healthy and they come down, like the Kings can't fuck with them.
And then, like, Jamal Murray didn't even play. You know what's crazy about the thing, too, is like the Pelicans don't have a home court advantage. So it's not like playing, you know, against the Warriors. Like I was looking today, and let's say the Pelicans are fifth, and let's say Denver slides to 4. Do you really want to be fifth? Like, you know, and there's gonna come a point where teams start like strategically thinking, like, whoa, I don't think we want to do that. Like, you know what I'm saying? So they go. So, and that's another thing. Like we talked about the schedule. So if we finish 6th, and let's say a team, let's say the Suns finish 7th, but the Suns make it to the plan, and they're playing the 2 seed, which is, let's just say, OKC, and they beat the dog shit out of OKC, but we got to face the Nuggets. So we're gonna be like, damn, I wish we finished 7th. Like it's just, I wish we lost another game or 2. It's just so many levels and like cerebral things that some of us can see that others can't see, or maybe they just they know it and that's not something to worry about. It's teach their own.
Versus you looking at them and saying, "Yo, I like their chances against
anybody." Right?
You know what I'm saying? And I think that there are teams like if you were a Kings fan last year, you should have liked your chances against anybody.
Right?
Because you had a system, you had dudes that were playing out of their mind, and you had Sabonis and Fox. You had the best offense in basketball, so you should have liked your chances against anybody. The Warriors, man, if the Warriors make the playoffs,
I don't want to play the Warriors. Like that's the thing. Yeah, like who want to play them?
And like they all like, bro, they all over the place. There are teams that like if you the Lakers, even just throw out the fact what they won and what they haven't. No, like they're gonna go into it thinking like we could. I like a chance against anybody. Dallas, same thing. I like our chances against anybody. And what they did was, all right, we can't change everything about our roster, but we could add some things that we didn't have already. We could add more arms, so we could go out and get a Gaffer. We can go out and get a PJ Washington to prepare ourselves from this, because eventually these dudes may be important. That's what I look at. There are certain teams that just aren't matchup defenders. It's just about if Luka or Kyrie have a bad night.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if Luka or Kyrie just don't show up, then hey. But if they show up, Dallas got a chance against anybody, and that's the feelings that I think I want this season from the Pelicans. If bro, Bi and Zion, I think had 16 and 15 in the Laker game against the first half. Well, in the first half.
Yeah.
And at no point, at no point, man, was I like, you know,
this is about to go down. Yeah, it's the start of something.
Like, they didn't care. They didn't care, man. And you know, and to me, I think that's the feeling with this team that I think folks miss, that you would like to feel. The Bucks have problems outside of Dame and Giannis. You know what I'm saying? Like they have issues there. Bro, you know, I wouldn't I'd throw the Celtics out, you know what I'm saying? But you know, man, there's some teams like nobody wants to play the Heat. You know what I mean? Because if they figure it out in time, they can play with anybody.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. It's like something that these older teams have is that, with the exception of maybe OKC, everyone and Minnesota, but this is their 3rd series at this point. They have poise. Like, you know what I'm saying? They got some poise. They're not going like, more than likely, they're not going to like freak out if something, you know, don't go right. Because even when Minnesota lost, they was up like 20-something points against Memphis each game. And if we being real with the Pelicans, and this shit like 2-3 years ago at this point, if we be real with the Pelicans, Devin Booker plays, the Pelicans get swept. So it's like, and not only do you need to see the best version, if you need to see the best version of Brandon and the best version of Zion that you've seen so far, cool. That could possibly happen. You need to see a version of these two that you've never seen before. That's the thing. Like, look, as good as Zion looked the other day, right? And you kind of say, "Oh, that looked like not even vintage Zion. That looked familiar." He'll tell you, "I ain't even me yet." Until I start doing shit you never seen before, that's when I'm me. And it's like, bro, if you go into the playoffs at 98%, you still not 110, 125%, we ain't got no chance, brother. Because you need to be, this would have to be the birth of Zion. Like, you know what I'm saying? The birth of the dude. And it's like, even if that happens, brother, I don't think you got the horses to like really. Yeah, like you know who Jokic is. We know, like we know the dude. We know who Luka is. We know who Kyrie is. We know who all these dudes are. We never seen Zion in the playoffs. He's still, according to him, he's not 100%. And can he do some amazing shit? Yeah, but even a lot of motherfuckers had an amazing individual series. But when you got Derek White, fucking all-stars caliber guy this year, like, come on, who the Pelicans really?
Man.
You know,
it would be, and I'll close it out. I'll close the show with this, Chaz. It would be a sad sight if Zion does get to 100% and we see him doing some incredible shit, and CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram don't play well.
Oh God!
And motherfuckers are gonna be looking at. I'll be wondering on the post game show, what the fuck y'all want us to say? what y'all want us to say? Well, what, like this? These are the kind of things we were worried about.
Hey, you know what's crazy? The crazy part is, even if he doesn't, they got another excuse. They can say, "Well, it's his first time there. What do you expect?" You know what I'm saying? So it's just, I'm tired of excuses, man. Let's win and get this foolishness over, like Juvenile say. Like, you know, man, it's crazy, bro.
Look, man. Shout out to Milwaukee. Shout out to Cleveland, who I think they went about it, a different way. No matter how you frame that. I live in Chicago, and I run into Bulls fans that tell me that they wanted this. They wanted this front office to blow this shit up. This Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan shit years ago. They wanted it out as soon as they found out Lonzo Ball wasn't playing an additional year. I think so.
Damn.
You know what I'm saying? Crazy. So imagine being in year 5 and not knowing, and possibly, beyond that. You got to be able to understand, no matter what side you are, how somebody could be like, y'all just got to show. So, hey, man, if I'm wrong, let it be. You know what I'm saying? I want to be, celebrating the championship just like anybody else. But until further evidence is out there, it is what it is. But that's for me. That's for Chaz. Appreciate y'all. Enjoy the All-Star break. Enjoy the festivities and everything else that we got. Once again, go watch Chaz's recent show. Go watch some of the other shows that we got. Holla at y'all till next time. We out.